if they want to.
And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo, and welcome to our program. And my guest is Claire Lebowitz. And Claire is a fascinating person. I heard her give a talk about a week ago. She's recently returned from Afghanistan and India, right? Mm-hmm. And where she was teaching children theater and civics. Mm-hmm. Wow. So we're going to talk about that. And also you're involved with Occupy Wall Street as well, right? Yep. And you work with the theater group there and different. Yep. We're going to talk about that as well. Great. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a great conversation. Cool. So welcome to Let Them Talk. And let me begin. Oh, by the way, we are live, and as you can see, our number is right there on the screen. So feel free to call us at any time. And by the way, behind us is a photograph, and it's a photograph of children at school in Afghanistan. It was taken by Q Sakamaki, a good friend of mine who was also a guest on this show, and who's a photographer who's traveled the world, and among his many destinations has been Afghanistan, and obviously he was at a school. So tell me, Claire, was this school that we're looking at in the picture behind us, was this like the school that you taught in?
I taught Afghan students at a school in India. When I taught them in Afghanistan, we were in a hotel, actually. Mm-hmm. But it's pretty... Yeah, I mean, it's pretty spare, and from what I hear from the students, like, there's really not that much money put into education there at all.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like the South Bronx. Are you a regular were you a teacher, like you're not a trained teacher?
No,
So how did you get involved in going to Afghanistan?
I, talked my way into this job. My friend runs the program, and I talked to him about it, and I said, oh, if you need another teacher, I'd love to go to India. Mm-hmm. And he said, what would you teach? I said, theater. He said, well, what does that have to do with learning English and leadership skills? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, everything. So I kind of BS'd a curriculum, and he hired me.
Right. Oh, great.
And that was a year ago. So I've been to Afghanistan 3 times and India twice with this program since then.
Okay, tell me what it was like the first time.
In Afghanistan?
Yeah, the first. Well, where did you go first?
First, I was in India last year. Okay. And I taught Afghan students there.
Okay, and tell me about that.
I was really, really nervous about it. Yeah. But they were so willing to learn, and you saw that their minds opened, like within a month they changed so much. They're really eager, and it was a different kind of learning because they've never taken theater class before. It was totally crazy for them. So
did you do things like have them fall into your arms? And,
kind of like pretend to be animals or plants and things like that.
Right.
Yeah, totally crazy. It was hard for the girls, especially because they, and
nothing to compare it to in their experience.
Completely, yeah.
Okay. So tell me, so you were in India, and how did these students get chosen? How were they lucky enough to get you as
they take a test for English proficiency, and then they get interviewed. And they wanted students from all over the country because part of the reason for the program is to create youth solidarity across different provinces. Sure. So that created a big disparity in English level because kids from province don't have as good an education as kids in Kabul. So some of them couldn't even put together a sentence.
Okay, in their own language, much less.
Yeah, exactly. There was one kid that was being privately taught, and then the counselor said, he can't even speak Dari. Oh my God!
His own language. Yeah, right? Dari is local language. So that's it. So you were in India and you taught there, and what was the school there like? Was that a hotel or was it a separate?
It was a school in Punjab. In Hoshiarpur last year, and then in Jalandhar this year.
Okay, and Punjab, that's part of India.
Yeah, Punjab is on the border with Pakistan, so it's like Sikh.
All right. Territory. Now, did you have to wear a kerchief?
When I was in Afghanistan, I definitely did. Okay. When I was in India, no.
It's optional.
Yeah, I didn't. I guess it's optional in Afghanistan as well, but I didn't want to offend anyone. It's a bit more conservative there.
Right, conservative. Right, so so you were in India the first time, and you were teaching students who were taken from Afghanistan, and you were teaching them theater. Then you returned to Afghanistan. I
went to Afghanistan for the first time in June, I guess, and that was just for a couple of days to bring kids who had been studying in the States back to Afghanistan. This program used to do educational exchange where they would send kids to the States for a year, but most of them ran away to Canada, so they stopped funding that program.
Okay, oh, really?
Because they don't want to go back to Afghanistan. Yeah.
Okay, why would they want to stay in Canada or the United States?
A lot of it is peer pressure. Like their parents call them up and they say, run away to Canada, and so many kids had done it before. But something like out of 34 kids, only 12, more than half ran away.
And first chance they got.
Yeah, and then they they don't know when they'll see their families again. They can never come back
Sure.
to America. It's not very smart when you're
Right.
16, 17, but
Right.
there's
That's
a big
what you're saying.
community there that will
The shelters have been allowed
shelter
to
them
come
and they're refugees
come
and
into
stuff.
Canada, right?
Yeah, which is a shame because the point was like to educate them and then they go back and they can change
Right.
their own country. And then there's also opportunities for them as alumni to apply for scholarships and things. But
Right. But it
they
was hard
ran
to
away.
get folks back. So, so you escorted them, so they wouldn't jump ship on the way back?
pretty much, yeah. And I took 3 kids back to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that's why they go to India. They just go to India for a month and then send them back to Afghanistan
Right.
instead of sending them to the States.
Less apt
like
to
a
stay in
Pandora's
India.
box. Yeah. And they're
Okay.
kind of under lock and key. like,
All right. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, then you again went to Afghanistan this time to
Yeah,
teach
this
there.
time, yes, exactly. It was a 6 months later with the same kids I had taught in India,
Yeah.
and that was in September. And that was when, I flew out of New York on September 11th to
Uh-huh.
Afghanistan, and
Wow.
yeah, the
Of
day I
this
got
year?
there, yep.
I mean, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that was the day I got there was the Taliban attack, where it was the worst one in Kabul in 10 years.
Okay.
10 suicide bombs went off pretty much at the same time across the city.
Oh, really? Anywhere near
then-
you where you were?
Yeah, there was one that was a block away, maybe.
Wow. What was that like?
I slept through it because
Right, you were saying
I was New York. I live in New York, so you hear construction and stuff. I wouldn't think. I was
You slept right
jet
through
lagged,
it.
I guess. Yeah.
that. Right. Kabam.
Yeah.
And shooting.
It's like a big boom.
Did
Well,
you wake
there
up to
wasn't a
shooting and things like that?
Well, when the first bomb went off, somebody just started knocking on my door and said, "You got to come downstairs. A bomb went off." And then, oh my
Okay.
God, this is crazy. So we just stay away from windows and try to figure out what's going on. It was very well coordinated.
The
by
attack was
it
well
was.
coordinated.
So the 10 bombs went off across the city at the same
Alright.
time. And the neighborhood that I was in is one of the safest neighborhoods. Things don't
Sure.
usually happen there. It's right by the parliament. And then by the time I went to bed at 9 o'clock, because this happened at 1 in the afternoon, we thought it was all over. But I woke up 3 hours later hearing machine guns
Sure.
and bombs and helicopters. And I was just following it on the internet. And there was an abandoned construction site outside the U.S. Embassy that they had stockpiled with ammunition and energy drinks,
Wow.
apparently.
Energy drinks.
Yeah. We were
And
wondering what's
ammunition.
the energy drink of choice of the Taliban. Is it
Interesting
like
combination.
Monster or
Right.
Red Bull? So then there was a shootout for 16 hours or something like that until the last guy was finally shot down.
Oh, right. So they didn't let him out. They got him, but they fight very hard to
They
the end,
do, yeah.
which makes it
So-
difficult, right?
Yeah, and the casualties are mostly like Afghan people, unfortunately.
What is the general, just getting away from the education for a minute, I want to talk more about that, but what's the general feeling walking the streets of Afghanistan as an American woman? What's it feel like to walk down the streets of Afghanistan?
There was,
Of Kabul, let's say,
yeah,
the capital.
people don't really. The one time that I went out, the first time I was there, one of the people who worked there said, 2 Americans shouldn't go together, and you should go to a shopping center where.
I think you're invading if you're more than one at a time.
Well, no, that you're more of a target. You
Okay.
draw too much
Oh, I
attention
see.
to you.
It
So
is too,
yeah.
really.
So go to a place where foreigners don't go, so you're sort of under the radar, and get in and get out. Essentially, like don't hang around and like
Yeah.
do a lot of shopping and
Okay.
decide what you want.
Oh, I see. Don't pass through. If you can go there, but don't
Mm-hmm.
hang around. Don't attract too much attention. Don't draw people around you.
Yeah, which was it made me nervous because he like set me up like that, and I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
So I go to this shopping center, and there's people in burqas, and they walk like really close to you, like almost stepping on your heels, and everyone's like
Sure.
passing by very close
Right,
on the stairs.
right.
So I was a little bit nervous, but
Okay.
I got my traditional Afghan dress and some souvenirs.
Right.
Got out,
And
really.
did anybody say anything? Any remarks? Any insults or anything like that?
No.
Nothing.
Not that I know of. I mean, Afghan people, from everyone I've met, they're super hospitable and very kind and sweet. And
Okay. What do they think about all these Americans there? American Army and all this stuff.
From what I've seen, Americans there are very heavily fortified. Like they stay on base, or they stay like under lock and key, and they ride around in armored vehicles and stuff like that. So they
You don't-
act like
they don't
really.
interact really. You don't see them on the street.
No, like when I have seen them, they've been like military, like with guns and stuff, and it's been I find it offensive, honestly.
Right. Yeah.
The embassy people.
Why? Why do you find it offensive?
Because if you're there to, the military is trained to fight wars, so they're not diplomats.
Right.
But it's not really the best way to treat people.
When they want to go in somewhere, they walk
country.
in. You know, really, it's not their problem. If it's a problem to you, it's not their problem.
Yeah.
Right.
The embassy people that I've met have been very nice, but it's sort of like they're all nervous. They're like, they can only go to certain places that are cleared by security, and they go in and go out, and they have a certain time
So they
frame.
think they might be a target of the Taliban.
Yeah, all
We're not
foreigners
talking about-
are.
Well, what is the Taliban's relationship to the people of Afghanistan? On some levels, I know that many people were disgusted by the Taliban. Yet at the same time, they seem to be the natural government there. So what's the situation? From that perspective,
There are certain provinces where they're controlling. They have a lot of power,
Sure.
Especially near the Pakistan border. And from what I've heard from students. I've heard horror stories about the years when the regime was in power, about they were little kids and they would remember seeing bodies hanging from trees having been shot up, and the fear of having your house being searched, and you can't have a television, and you can't have, there's roadblocks in certain places, and if they find a empty blank sheet of paper, they'll cut your head off because it means you're trying to educate yourself.
And that's not allowed.
Not to the Taliban. But on the other hand,
not just for girls or just for
anybody.
For anybody, right?
Yeah.
So you're putting your life in your hands.
I guess so.
You're a target.
Yeah, definitely I'm a target.
A teacher.
Yeah, for sure. All foreigners. They want all foreigners out.
Back in the days of slavery, if you were caught trying to teach a slave, now, I can't. You see, it's a tough thing for me because I just said something that was, not very nice probably about the Taliban. They seem to me a very negative force.
Yeah.
As far as how they deal with women, how they deal with religion, how they deal with the people around them. Yet at the same time, I can't condone American military forces there. So what do you do in a situation like that?
Well, also the Taliban, represented something in the sense that people say that if you have a bar of gold and you put it on the street, it would be there when you came back.
Right, so it was law and order, right?
Exactly, it was law and order to the extreme.
Right, which is a lot of people like. In this society, people call for that all the time. It has its support. It definitely has its supporters, and it had its supporters in Afghanistan.
And before that, there was the warlord governments, though, and that was a civil war, essentially. And those are the people that we've put back into power since we've...
Warlords.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the old way. It might have been 19th century or whatever.
Yeah.
Same thing, right?
Yeah.
And so
much corruption.
Right.
I think the only answer is to educate people. When people are 70-something%, maybe more illiterate, I don't know how you can expect progress or, people not to be superstitious or fundamentalist or...
Claire Lebowitz, who just returned as a teacher from Afghanistan and India, where she was teaching Afghan young people theater. And we're going to ask her some more about that. By the way, we are live. You can see our number on the screen, 212-757-1538. So if you call, you can ask a question, and we'll be happy to take your calls. Remember, there's an 8-second delay, so please turn your TVs down when you do call, so we can speak much more easily together with each other. So again, Claire, you were there as a teacher teaching theater. Why theater? Why was theater chosen as a course that would be important?
Well, I'm a theater artist, so that would be what I would teach regardless.
Sure.
But I think it was really useful, especially for kids to, think creatively, because it's not the kind of education that's valued there at all. Everything is rote memorization. So that was really radical for them. And
what
also,
are the teachers there like, the Afghan teachers?
I think they're awful, from what I understand.
Yeah, right.
That they really don't know very much, and everything is about memorizing, and which was good when I wanted students to learn their lines for the plays that I was directing.
They knew how to do
but
that.
yeah,
Right. They could memorize the lines.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, that's good. A lot of directors would cry for that.
Yeah, well, it was good too for kids whose English maybe wasn't very good. So, because I played a lot of games, and it's a different skill set than
you were doing ES. In a sense, it's almost like ESL. When you're,
I guess
you're
so.
bringing people, they had to learn English in order to understand what your directions were.
Yeah,
so
I had a counselor who would translate sometimes if they couldn't understand.
But you were jumping on one foot,
all that crazy
doing all
stuff.
The thing you have to do to get people to try and figure out what you're talking about. Great. So okay, you were. let's talk. I want to come back to that, but Claire, you're also involved with Occupy Wall Street.
Yep.
And you were involved with basically the theater group within Occupy Wall Street before or during the time you were in Afghanistan. So, so if you could tell us a little bit maybe about your experience with Occupy Wall Street, how you got involved in Occupy Wall Street and why you're involved in it. Are you from New York originally?
Upstate, Saratoga. Okay. But I've lived here 10 years.
Okay. So that makes you a New Yorker as much as anybody.
I think so. So I joined the movement right when I got back from Afghanistan in September. Sure. And I heard it was crazy because I heard about it from a friend in England on Facebook who posted an article because there was that media blackout. Okay. And I was like, this is happening right over the bridge, and I don't even know about it. So the first day I showed up there, I met two of my friends that I'm still friends with, and we wrote a play. Okay. You were there? Yeah, the first day. At Zuccotti Park? Yeah. Liberty Square? Yeah. And it was written to be performed on the corner of Wall Street and Broad Street, and it's this mass processional sort of, how would I describe it? I don't know, but it takes a lot of people, and it's very visual and large, and it hasn't been performed yet, but I've been trying to pass that around and get other people. The Wall Street play. The Wall Street play? Yeah, so it's sort of like the history of like how we got through. Do you have any sort of contact information or a web page or something if folks are interested in what you're talking about, want to learn more about it? I have a web page for my acting stuff, but it doesn't have any OWS stuff on it. But you can contact me through there at Claire Helen, CLAIRE HELENE @clairehelen.com. Okay. And so since then, I started coming back, and I became an organizer for the Performance Guild, which was a subgroup of arts and culture when that was formed, which was back in early October. And since then, we've done, I organized Occupy Broadway, which was this event that happened. Right, what was Occupy Broadway? I noticed that, I never got to one, but I saw it being advertised. Oh, yeah. What's it about? It happened December 2nd and 3rd. It was a 24-hour performance occupation, which was the first successful occupation post the eviction of Zuccotti Park on November 15th. And what did you occupy? We took a plaza, a privately owned public space in Times Square. So people people weren't told what the location was, and they gathered at the TKTS booth in the center of Times Square, and then the marching band came through and took the huge group of people, because we had to have enough numbers to take the space. And then we took it, and we had programmed it for 24 hours. So we tried to stay sort of on message with a lot of the programming, like really so events that were happening, plays. Yep. Mike Daisy performed there, and the New York City Labor Chorus, and the Civilians, and Bread and Puppet, and Great Small Works, and like really awesome downtown theater people. Was anybody arrested? I always have to ask that. Nobody was arrested. The police just kept their distance and let you guys do your thing. Yeah, they set up the barricades, and then they had to stand there for 24 hours, and we kind of made them part of the show, because we had people that would come in at they wouldn't let us lie down. So we would sort of try to say, what's lying down? Are we in a ball if we lie down? If you lie down, that's a federal offense there, right? Apparently. A major offense. Yeah. How dare you lie down? But we had performances for the entire 24 hours. It was a really amazing event. Yeah. And so at one point, my friend Joe, who is in the puppet group, he came in with his show about Mayor Bloom Scrooge, and he turned to which was a show that we did an Occupy Christmas Carol in December, which that character was revived for. And he would turn to the cops that were standing right on the other side of the barricades, and this was at maybe 7 in the morning or something, and he goes, "You're my private army! Arrest them! Arrest them!" And they were kind of getting a kick out of it. That's a reference to the fact that Bloomberg had referred to the NYPD as his private army, who could eliminate any group that wanted to protest against his rules. Right. Do you plan more things with Occupy Wall Street around the theater? Are you working on anything? Yeah, I'm waiting to sort of see where when the next project is going to come up right now. The puppet people are very prolific. There was just an article in American Theater Magazine about us, about the Performance Guild and puppets and a lot of the stuff that's been going on. Yeah. And so I guess planning for May Day is the big thing. May 1st, right? Yep.
And that's a Wednesday? Is that a
I
Wednesday?
don't know.
Tuesday or Wednesday?
I'm not sure.
Okay, but May 1st is coming up. Big strike for that day.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to stay home from work and stay home from school and participate in protests and
Yeah,
demonstrations.
so I want to try to get some performing in there.
Okay. Are you planning to go back to Afghanistan?
There is another opportunity in September if I want to go. I'm not sure. Things are getting, the political situation is different now than it was a year ago, definitely.
It's more confrontational. Is the United States getting ready to leave Afghanistan?
Absolutely. I mean, like, I think that, I think it was even difficult to get funding for this program in the future because everyone's just talking about 2014 and being out of there.
Yeah.
And the Taliban's coming back. And because of what's gone on with this guy who shot 16 people and the Quran burning, which all happened while I was teaching the kids in India.
What was the effect when that Quran burning happened? Was there an immediate effect in your classroom with your students?
Well, because we were in India, it was like we were removed from it. And we didn't explicitly talk about it. I wondered whether I should, like whether that would be like a good thing to do, to have a big discussion about it.
Right, because it's so sensitive.
Yeah, it's so sensitive, and also there were a couple of moments when we did talk about stuff that was going on in Afghanistan, and it sort of changed the mood where you want kids to like become friends with each other and like try to like think differently, and to bring that into a different space than
it's an immediately polarizing experience.
Yeah,
Right?
we
Really
talked about a rule that was passed while they were in India about women not being able to travel without a male and her relative.
Are women, if the Taliban comes back, are women going to be put back in the home?
That's the first thing I think that's going to happen if the Taliban comes back.
What do the women you talk to in Afghanistan think about that?
It's very sad. It's really, 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 really sad. And what's happened is the Ulema Council, which is this religious scholars, I guess, who seem to be above the government because they passed these suggestions that the president has now backed, and one of them being women can't travel. And this became a topic for discussion at camp. And
so the current government that the United States is supporting is approved a religious edict saying that women cannot travel in Afghanistan, which will be one of the first laws that get passed when the Taliban get back.
Yeah. They're pretty much opening the door for the Taliban to come back, essentially. And now is like a crucial moment in Afghanistan because they're sort of testing the waters to see how the public is going to react to it. And so I talked to my students about planning protests and starting up websites and what can they do to sort of let the government know that this is like not okay. And it actually became polarizing to the students because some of the boys who were from Taliban-controlled areas had these brainwashed mentalities about how, well, the Ulema Council is... See, they're very open to, like, just accepting any kind of authority. The Ulema Council is religious and older, so they must know better. And so they said, well, we support this rule. And that was really hard for me to hear, and I think really divisive to the student body.
Do you have women and boys in the same classroom?
Yeah, and that's for the first time for them.
How does that work?
My homeroom was 8 girls and 2 boys, because it was the kids with the highest English levels, so most of the girls were better.
Okay.
And so the boys were outnumbered. But last year, I had a couple of kids. There's so many factors involved, I think, like PTSD, and the fact that boys and girls are together, the fact that some of the boys, well, all the boys would never have had a woman teacher before. They're not used to having to even listen to women.
But still, they listen to you and they do things with you.
Yeah.
You must be a terrific teacher.
I think I am, yeah.
You are. All right, Claire, thank you. Claire Lebowitz joining us here on Let Them Talk to talk about her experiences with Occupy Wall Street and then as a teacher in Afghanistan and India, teaching Afghan youth. Thank you so much for joining us on Let Them Talk.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week with another great show.